this thing on? I don't know. Let me check. Is this thing on? I think it is. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Derek, and I am the owner, creator, and head silicone slinger here at Amavidi, where we make silicone toys for adults. Hey, my mic is on. It's on this one. It's on this screen. But it's on this screen. So I'm gonna have to do my intro on this screen because I screwed up and didn't put it on. I didn't put my mic on the other screen because I'm an idiot. All right, so yeah, we're back. The computer blew up and things went awry because that's what they do. And we were supposed to be starting 20 something minutes ago, actually half an hour ago, do the intro, do the pre-show, do all the things. And well, you know, computers do their thing and it went badly. But we're here and you're here. So that's a good thing. Yeah. We got new patrons. You might see the list. The list is getting longer. It keeps just getting longer and longer, and that's a good thing. We are doing a special that ends tomorrow. Patreon.com/Amavidi. Anybody who is supporting us at the squishy level or higher will be getting a free pack of squishies. So jump over to patreon.com/Amavidi. You cannot search for us on the Patreon app because we cannot be found on the Patreon app. Because we're tagged as an 18 plus patron or Patreon, you cannot find us on the app. You actually have to go to patreon.com/Amavidi to find us. But if you do that and you come in at the squishy or higher levels, then you will get a pack of squishies. And that is pretty cool. Basically what we're trying to do is make this sustainable. I did the math this last week because the kerfuffle that happened 2 weeks ago, hardware failures, etc., made me kind of figure out that this needs to be done in a way that is sustainable. And basically I figured out this costs about, well, depending on how you do the math, it gets kind of fuzzy, but somewhere around $500 a month to do this. So we're just trying to make it sustainable, and hopefully you can come in and support us in some fashion. Now, having said that, we're going in a little bit different direction tonight. We've got Kevin from Simply Elegant Glass, who is going to be joining us here in just a moment. Like I said, a little bit different direction. We're going glass instead of silicone, and I am fascinated by glass, and I have it in my head that maybe one day I'm going to have the opportunity to work with glass, but it hasn't happened yet, but it will one day. So with that, I think I want to bring Kevin on. Let me see if I can find him, and hopefully this is going to work, because I've had to rebuild all of this from scratch, so hopefully it doesn't blow up on us. Let's see. Is it? That's a Kevin. Kevin.
There's no dynamite behind me, is there?
No, there's not. Oh my god. Oh jeez.
What's up, everyone?
Hi. Thank you so much for being so patient and experiencing this kerfuffle and this explosion of technology with me.
Every day's a kerfuffle in some way or another, so it's no worries on my end. None at all.
Oh man. So yeah, we were supposed to start like almost half an hour ago, and I appreciate you being so patient and letting me beat on my computer and get it into submission. I think I've got it in submission. We've got it in submission hold at this point.
Fingers crossed that it stays that way.
Yes. So I know what you do. And I kind of led up to it a little bit. Why don't you take a second and kind of give us an idea, what is Simply Elegant Glass? What is it that you guys do?
So we make borosilicate glass toys. I mean, it's something that I didn't expect to get into when I did, but I mean, going into the pandemic and everything, it wasn't exactly what I thought was on my radar, but it's been interesting learning about the properties of glass. It's been interesting learning about how how it offers a different level of hygiene than some other mediums, and just all the weird trickiness and nuances that we've got at the shop. It's an adventure every day with what we do, and it's a lot of fun making toys. And even if it's something like this or whatever have you, it's just something new every day. So I don't know what to say. It's we I make toys, I help with the coloring and the processing, I do a lot of the marketing for the shop, as well as the photography, the videography, and Anna, the shop lead, works on a lot of the engineering and the back of the line processes that actually allow us to do what we do. So she's really done a lot of work over the last 15 years, I think it was, or so, that she's been growing up as a glassblower and as an engineer. Everything else that she's done, I've come late into the game, so there's a lot that she's built up, and I'm very happy to be there and representing her shop today.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've come into this late in the game in terms of, what Simply Elegant Glass is. I guess, like, why adult toys? Why this particular category?
So, going off of what I've heard from her in terms of her lead into it, she started off with making pipes, bongs, and stuff like that. She's made pendants. I've actually got one that I need to find and dig back up, because it's a special little pendant that she made for me years ago before I even considered becoming a glass blower, essentially. But she had started off with making stuff like that. The market started, as marijuana became legal, the market started getting really rapidly flooded with high bulk, low cost goods, and it was hard for her to compete with that unless she was to do a focus on the artisan market, which it can be hard in the medium to get yourself established like that. Even if you do really good work, the social media of it, I feel like, is so ridiculously important on that end from what I've seen. But the toys had been something she had been working on just here and there, a toy here, a toy there, as a custom kind of request from people from time to time, or she would just make them and sell them. And found out that she had a really good knack for making ago before I joined in 2019, that she really started hammering them down as like a full-blown business.
Interesting. So 2019, that was a little bit before COVID. And so I guess you were coming into it, and as COVID kind of took off, did COVID have an impact on your business? Do you think it did?
Yeah, it had in the massive amount of products from drop shippers or from resellers that have been going on there. And for us in particular, it kind of hit us hard for a little while, because it was hard to find our niche when it felt like 10, 15, 20, 100, however many people started doing it, were buying the exact same toys from the same producer in these big crates and being able to sell them in bulk like that. But we've found our footing since then. We found our footing.
Tell me what separates the glasswork that you're doing versus what somebody might find on AliExpress, or some of the mass-produced stuff that somebody might find that's being resold on Etsy or something like that.
A couple of things. Some of the times it's funny, because some of the things I've seen are really exaggerative glow toys where the glass will be photoshopped to look like it's glowing, and it has a glow pigment in there, but it's nowhere near. And I think I should have sent the link on this, but there was a sex toy blogger that had mentioned us by name, as well as a couple of other glass making toy artisans. that had mentioned the nature of stresses in
Mhm.
glass, which is pretty important when you're talking about something you're going to be sticking into your body.
Right.
Not that we're expecting anybody to go like worry about a hard enough impact to break most toys, but sometimes a stress mark, depending on the piece, if it's very highly stressed and the welds, let's see, I've got a,
Was that the
I've,
polarization
yeah, the,
that Dangerous Lily did?
yeah, Dangerous Lily, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've combed through it, but yeah, Dangerous Lily did the article and she did a really good job on covering it. Made sure to emphasize that for the most part, these other toys won't have issues, but especially some of them that are more egregious, that are rainbow colored under that polariscope, all that tension is just pulling and pushing and causing that stress to,
Mm.
if you drop your toy the wrong way, it could be an unnecessary point of weakness to where, it could be in a full padded case and all it takes is one nasty shock and the piece falls apart on you at that spot. Even in a protective case, it could, with the right angles coming together or whatnot, it could cause issues there.
Yeah.
We
What's it called? Prince Rupert's Drop.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's those
it's
are I've tried making those and I've had people ask me to make those like 100 times now, and I think every time I eventually just said forget it, I'm gonna make one. And I tried making one, I tried making five, I tried making 20. The first time I got one to work, I pulled it out of the water and it blew up on me.
right. And some people may not know what that is, but what it is, and we might get into this in the conversation here.
Yeah.
It's basically molten glass that has been submerged in water, cooled in a way that the stresses, the interior stresses versus the outside, are such that it's stable until it has any kind of a fracture or any kind of a break in it. And
Mhm.
even the smallest little stress to it can cause it to shatter and it explodes. It doesn't just
Yeah.
like kind of fall apart. It explodes. And there are a lot of videos on YouTube about it. Who is it? The slow mo guys have done some videos showing kind of just how it's really cool. I kind of get into
Mhm.
the geeky side of that,
Oh yeah.
but the Prince
Adam
Rupert's
and
drops are
Jamie Adam and Jamie, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I'm
no
sorry. But Adam
go ahead.
and Jamie from the Mythbusters actually
Mm-hmm.
did a whole little special too on that idea. And the principle of it is tempering.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Prince Rupert's drop is the most extreme and exaggerative form of what you can achieve with that. And most of the toys that come from these factories are tempered. They're not annealed. You'll get them and they'll have that distinct pattern where it kind of looks like it's pulling from the core. Sometimes it's a little bit uneven. I've even put my glasses underneath a polariscope, and it's the weirdest experience because you don't expect the stresses that come with
Mm.
it. And it's not like they're not body safe, but these are definitely not pieces in the long run that'll last, hundreds of years or even potentially a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, Shop Dad is in the chat. He said, I had a glass toy do the fun explosion thing when it dropped and mass produced cheap glass. Yeah. Um, you mentioned two things. One was tempering versus annealing.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that just a little bit? Uh,
Yeah. So from what I've understood in terms of, because I've had to do a little bit of research on what these shops do, learn about how they make some of their things, and they'll make these toys in bulk, just one after the other. Just by the time we might have a couple of pieces finished, they might have a crate of these clear glass pieces finished.
hmm,
But how they cool them down is they'll cool them down pretty quickly but safely so that the integrity of the glass still holds, but a nice bit of surface strength, take a glass cutter to it and the whole thing explodes.
hmm,
But annealing is the process of taking the temperature from the piece from its highest annealing points and slowly bringing it down after all those pieces of glass, all that crystalline structure has just sealed up together, bringing it down step by step and to its most critical points for 12 to 24 hours at
mhm.
times. until it's cool enough. Once you're at about 200 degrees, yeah, it's like playing hot potato with the pieces out of the kiln at that point, but they're safe to pull out at that point. I could dunk them in water and it's not like they're going to just immediately cause new stresses or blow up. It's just warm,
Yeah.
simply hot
Um,
glass.
I mean, I come from a jewelry making background, and we kind of use the same things, and we talk about tempering and annealing. And I always kind of thought of it as, when you're annealing, you're taking the stresses out of the material. You're realigning all the molecules in such a way that the stresses are removed, and you're to a certain extent you're softening it. In metal, we're softening the material. With
Yeah,
tempering, you're creating stresses, but you're creating stresses in order to create strength.
yeah,
So they're two totally different things, but they have their uses. Like tempered glass is often used for windows and things like that, and they have their uses, but not
yeah.
necessarily. You don't necessarily want them in your anywhere near your body.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, like I've got a tempered glass desk here right now, and the
Mm.
difference between that and one of the toys that I've got sitting in front of me, if I were to take a glass cutter to my desk, the whole entire thing would shatter into a million pieces. If I were to sit there and throw one of these toys at the ground, it might chip on the outside or break in half. That's the biggest thing that when it comes to these when they're annealed is that if they do start hitting other hard objects, they are likely to chip. Not that they're weak, but if it's a harder object, it still can affect even just a little ting. We've had to take a piece that's completely finished and put it back in the kiln and repair it because one piece ran into it when we were finishing it, and that's that. Got to repair it.
Mm. Yeah.
Luckily, it is salvageable though, so it's not like the pieces that get damaged are just like, well, we just gotta nip it, throw it in the bucket, and it's just gone.
That was one of the things with jewelry making was that it was all recyclable. Is that something that you guys can do as well?
To an we can do it to an extent. There's some elements of what we do when it comes to especially waste glass that we can't recycle the glass, unfortunately, because most of it's contaminated with titanium or metal because of some of the processes of using the jacking shears,
Mm.
which it's all that always will never get old. We use jacks to make toys, and the first day consisted of me trying to not giggle like a little kid when Anna would tell me, all right, jack off the end, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm jacking off a sex toy in the making. I'm about to graduate school and this still gets me. I'm a child.
Yeah. Oh,
Nah, it's just
geez.
the everyday spiel.
Yeah. Um, okay, now you got me thinking about it. Uh, but um, so we talked about recycling, but also can you recover? If there's a toy that maybe didn't come out just right, can you recover?
It depends on what happens to the toy. And I brought some examples of ones that we could recover or couldn't recover here, and I'll be showing those later. But it really depends on what happens inside of the glass, because sometimes the
Mm.
color layer that we work on ends up having issues where that on the inside just completely cracks apart. And the whole piece is still structurally fine. It's just that part causes a little bit of danger that we don't want to risk with something that's meant to go inside the body. If it was just for aesthetic, it's fine.
Mm.
But if it's for the function and purpose that these are for, we shelve them and we retire them permanently, because they're just at that point, especially with some of these pieces, the cracks go all the way through the middle and there's no recovering that.
Mm. George just mentioned it in the chat, and I'm going to remind everybody, if you've got questions, drop them in the chat. George will wrangle them for me and get them to me so that we can get them to Kevin. Um, and you just said something I wanted to follow up on. What kind of damage should people be looking out for? At what point should glass toys be retired?
I would say the point that a glass toy should be retired is anytime it gets a chip, it gets a ding, They're pretty obvious when they happen. Like I could sit there and take a couple of, just for a sample, I could take this and do this, and that's not going to harm it. But if a piece falls off and it looks like there's a little divot inside of it or there's chipping, you're usually going to be able to, if you can run your finger over it and your fingernail catches it and it's really uncomfortable, it it's usually a pretty safe bet that at that point you should retire it. Granted, we have had in the past customers who've had a toy with a chip in it that either because we've had a couple of times, we're really rigorous on our inspection, but there's been a couple of times where it's slipped and we've taken it back free of charge, repaired it, or replaced it appropriately as needed. But there's definitely been a couple of times where people have asked us, hey, can you repair this? And
Mm-hmm.
we say we usually can, as long as the piece isn't completely broken in half, the colors aren't an issue, or some of the materials such as artificial opals aren't an issue as well, because there's just a whole slew of things that can cause things. But we've had other issues where we've had a piece that was sent back to us that was literally broken in half from the shipping, and that piece was just irrecoverable. It was done. It was in tatters.
Mm, yeah. That was going to be my follow up, which was, if somebody does have something that has a chip in it, and they want to have it repaired, is it possible to repair something? And it sounds like it is.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It really depends on it depends on the chip. It depends on the color. Sometimes
mm,
the colors might not come back the same way because some of
mm,
them are very temperature or kiln sensitive. Some of them will change colors and they might look prettier, they might look uglier, but we can definitely do it. It just depends on what happened, or there are some factors that when it comes to it that do change.
mm. Um, Frost in the chat is reading my mind. What's the design process with glass toys like? Because as I understand it, you don't use molds,
No,
and
we do not.
it's something that is completely different from the silicone side. Silicone side, we have our molds and we reproduce things. Every one is exactly the same as the one before it, but you don't use molds. So how does the
No.
design process work for you guys?
So the long short of the spiel that I can give you is that we use a lot of what are called both hard forces and soft forces when we work with glass. Hard forces being something like pressing a piece of glass between two chunks of graphite, or soft forces being gathering a chunk of glass up to a what's called a gather. Imagine that. To get that size of something like, let's say, the head of a toy, or being able to pull glass for specific components of the toy. There's the design process is pretty much, as weird as it is to say, it's kind of a motto of the shop. It's a go with the flow kind of thing. So
Mm,
when it comes to just the base of each piece, we kind of just say, this sounds fun. And we work with what we can on the forces that we know and the designs that we play around with. And otherwise, when it comes to stuff like texture or more complex pieces, that's when different kinds of glass come out. That's when after processing, or like not after processing, but like processing after the main piece of glass has been made. So dots of texture are usually laid on the torch individually, very coolly, so that the glass doesn't boil at the ends. Um, what else? We've also got other examples like, or other things when it comes to design process stuff like marbles at the end that we can make. If I can get a good little shot of that. Can my camera do the thing?
you might have to hold it right in front of your face.
Come on, I don't want my face. I want this. There we
There you
go.
go.
Like
Okay.
implosions or anything like that. It really just depends on what we feel for the material that we work with, or what the color sensitivity, or what the color sensitivity is to change, whether we want it or not. But ultimately it goes on a piece by piece basis, because every single toy that we make is truly in its own way unique.
Yeah. Like that one that you were just holding there.
Yeah,
Can we see it? Can you see it? Can you show
yeah.
it?
So let me get this like such. This was actually
Okay.
going to be one of the flops I was going to show because this one had, let me see if I can find the spot. If I can get the camera to focus on it and not my face. But this piece was meant to be a small unicorn horn wand essentially, but right about here, I can't seem to get it on the camera because I think it's a small piece and it's really hard for the camera to focus on this. But the color in the middle actually started splitting and cracking on us. And the moment that that happened, it's just, we consider it a loss because there's nothing we can do to recover it. Some of these colors, once they start getting overworked, they will actually have issues with that,
Mm.
unfortunately. Not all of them, just some of them. And that one in particular, as beautiful as it is, if it starts doing that, there is no more recovering it. It's just
Yeah.
done. Game over.
Gotcha. Now, like on that one in particular, can you tell us, and you don't have to get into anything that is proprietary or anything like that, kind of where you would start with that, I guess, design process of that one, where you would start and how you would build towards that
Yeah.
final product?
So we start with chunks of clear material, just a solid chunk of glass that's about 44 mil wide, anywhere from 44 to 20 something. It depends on the component we're building or what we're trying to make from it, but we do work with some pretty hefty chunks of glass. And we'll take that chunk, we'll color over it and work our color magic. And by that point, we've got, depending on what we want to do with the color, we've got to work the color to get it to where we want it to go, or we have to from there layer it over with clear and make our material rod, which ends up usually being anywhere from, I'd say like anywhere from 12 to 16 inches. Sometimes we get bigger chunks depending on, it just depends on how much we start with for the material and how much we layer over it. And then we
Okay.
go from there to make the toy, which could be a wand, it could be a set of butt plugs, it could be Kegel eggs. It just depends on what we want to do with it. It could be a custom order.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Um, hmm. I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Um, oh, Shop Dad coming in with the good questions. Um, with the new ASTM committee looking at adult toys, how do you think glass fits into that? And I don't know if you know anything about the ASTM committee. They're trying to develop some standards for the adult toy
Mhm.
industry. Um, do you think there's any way of developing standards for glass toys?
Definitely. I feel like there definitely has to be standards when it comes to something, a
Mm,
material like glass, because at least when it comes to silicone, I feel like if there's a issue with it, the worst issues you'll deal with are more on the hygienic end, which are still bad, but it's not going to sit there and be like something that you something that you hold and it has the potential of causing much more danger than, oh well, it's a flop and it came to me as a flop, I see it as a flop. There could be small imperfections on handled that could cause issues like unwelded itself awkward. Oh, I froze up for a second.
hmm.
It could be something as much as one little string of glass that flipped around and stuck itself to the toy, or it could be one thing that actually has been a really big issue lately has been the iridescent glass wands that we've seen.
Hmm.
I don't remember the pigment explicitly, but I do remember it was the potential to leach and it was toxic from what I recall, as far as what I had seen some in-depth sex toy reviewers talking about. So I was like, I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, and they're just selling this. Even Anna at the shop mentioned that is extremely toxic, even just to make those. It's some titanium compound. I can't remember exactly, but parts like things like that happening with glass, or specific glasses that we use. It's why we layer over clear, because, or over all of our toys, because some of these have metallic oxides, some of them have cadmium in them, some of them
Mhm.
have, we don't know what the pigments are, because when it comes to especially borosilicate glass, a lot of the companies are really, really, really secretive about what they color with. The only reason I know a couple of the oxides, like I know a couple of the oxides that went into making this, because the woman who made the formulas for some of the colors made them pretty much open to the public. But the company that adopted that formula and made their own colors, their own formulas, I don't know what they're putting in their glass. And the last thing I want is to give someone a piece of glass that's not body safe, because it could leach the chemicals from that pigment.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how the standards committees come out and
Mm-hmm.
what they end up doing. Um, I would love to participate in that, but I've got so many irons in the fire already that I just don't know if I can.
Oh yeah.
Uh, what do you think are the biggest challenges as far as glass making goes?
Hmm. Well, one of them is definitely weather.
Really?
It really can affect the whole entire, a whole entire season's worth of production for us. We had to go back and talk with some of our clients who had hired or had commissioned us for some private works, and tell them that we couldn't work on the larger pieces because the shop was running over 100 degrees at all times. The intake air was running at 90, the outtake air was, or the temperature near our torches, just walking around there without the torches running, at times was 103, 104.
Uh,
I think I went through gallons of, like, over a gallon of water each day, just finishing up pieces, and I'd walk off the torch replenishing another one, because you've got the amount of heat that's just around ambient in the shop, and then you've got all the heat blasting back at you from the torch. So that's one of them. I think the other one is, I would say, just the amount of volume that we're not able to process, because we don't have means of doing molds. We have to do
mm,
we have to do everything by hand. We've got a method to our madness, but
right.
it still winds up being about a cap of anywhere from 10 to 15 pieces a day at most, if we've got our material set aside properly. But most days it ends up being anywhere from 3 to 7. And that's because we're just taking our time making sure each piece is touched up nicely, handled well. And at the end of the day, we want to deliver something that's going to last longer than, the next tumble down the staircase.
Yeah. Um, and uh, I always think of see, to me the biggest challenges are when I think of glass is
Mm.
failure rates, um, and because I don't know exactly what can you recover, um, and I think you've got some flops there,
Yes, I
um,
do.
and I'm always curious, just what does it take to be a glass flop, and how hard is it to recover?
So I've got a couple, or the couple of flops that I have. Some of them are just because they were retired designs that we decided were just not suitable for the shop anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But most times, if we have something that's never going to see the shelf, because it's a just done goner, it's like the toy that I showed you earlier, where we're just, if we try and recover it, it's not going to be recoverable. The color is going to crack up, or for some odd reason, we've had one piece in the past where some of the color that we used on it was highly temperature sensitive to the flame, and anytime we worked on it, the whole entire the piece would just start boil. The pieces, the part that Anna was working on would start boiling. So temperature sensitivity can definitely be one of those things. Or you just, this has happened to me a couple of times, or There was one design that we were working on, and I kid you not, it was the most cursed design because we'd make it, it looked beautiful, and it fell off the punty and it busted in half. So we had to do something else with it other than what we were doing. Granted, that's one of the nice things is we can have a piece that drops on the ground on us, and if it just falls apart, we've still got a means of recovering and doing something with it. But it's not always possible because sometimes it falls into the two pieces. Sometimes the color on the inside is going to look like literal mud if we redo it. And we're usually that's another flop case. If the color on the inside doesn't react well to being reheated and the piece breaks, we usually just kind of sigh disappointedly and call it on that piece and work on the next one. Some flops some of the things that happen that we can recover, like if there's bubbles toward the surface that are too close to the surface and we're worried about having issues with maybe getting popped open or just causing a point where it doesn't need to be that close, because sometimes glass itself has bubbles throughout it. Even our core material will have tiny little bubbles that just hang out in the middle, and we can't really do much about that, but it's not something that'll ruin the safety of the piece. But if it's too close to the surface, we're usually able to pull them out and work with the piece from there.
Interesting. I don't think I'm going to make some assumptions here. You said that your production is very limited because you don't use molds. That doesn't lend itself well to doing drops or anything, does it?
It depends. We definitely make sure that we keep our pricing and everything the way that we have, so that we can continue to do things the way that we do, because the last thing we want to do is try and get faster and faster and faster with our work and risk dropping our quality, or just risk dropping our standards for ourselves, which would not happen even if we were to work faster. But the drops that we do are usually every day anyways, regardless of how many pieces we have, because we just, at the end of the day, we come in, we work on the components, and if we can't finish the components that we need to towards some pieces, it's ready to go the next day as the kiln warms up, as long as it's not a piece that changes rapidly over the course of multiple fires.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I want to remind everybody that if you do have any questions, drop them in the chat. I saw a comment from Frost. I really appreciate when makers know a lot about the materials they use and share that info. It shows how highly safety is valued, and it's reassuring as a customer, especially when I don't know much about glass. So that's, kudos.
Yeah, we've actually even had a couple of people message us asking, hey, is this an issue or is that an issue? Or people have pointed out, or we just had people come to us in messages asking questions about glass with concerns about the nature of it. Is it safe? Is it strong? And I'm usually the first one to respond and say, yes, it's safe. We make sure that our pieces are super strong and durable. I've literally I vend my own pieces at conventions, and I've had people air the same exact concerns about my art pieces that I show. And I'll jokingly walk out to, and convention hotels with the thin layer of carpet that they have and it's concrete below. I'll just sit there and I'll look them dead in the eyes and I'll just drop it. It'll bounce and roll around. Nothing will happen to the piece. I get a smile out of it because no. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
The reaction's usually pretty funny to watch, but I know the strength of our work. I know what the failure conditions are for our works, and I know what shouldn't happen. So whenever people ask us or come to us with those kinds of concerns, we're more than happy to answer it.
Now, do you start from, when you're working on designs, do you start from sketches or anything like that?
No, we usually just start from Anna's really good at what she does when it comes to making some of the designs that she does. Especially, I'm seeing in the chat a question about certain designs or replicas, and I'll get to that one in a moment. But it's definitely, she's learned how to freehand most of her stuff pretty well. Occasionally she'll drop a sketch of something she wants me to get to, or a result she wants me to get to finish a piece, but for the most part it's just pretty much free-handed for everything that we do, unless it's more intricate designs like wrap and rakes or other glass techniques like reticello. Then that involves a whole different set of work. Most of the time, if she's sketching something though, it's to show me, or show me what the result she wants to be, and explaining along the way how to get there. So
Hmm. And how do you decide when to retire a model or a design?
when we feel like we've done something better, when we feel like we've done something better for it, something like how twisted the shaft is, or how melted down the ridges are, what about a specific aspect of a design we don't like. One example I can say is, when I was first in the shop, this was our initial takes on the unicorn horns, and it's really small. I'd say the diameter is about as big as my finger, my pointer finger. So not really big. It's not like it's not body safe. It's just this definitely wasn't what we were going for design wise. We started moving more toward this,
Mm-hmm.
where it's got the taper from the end to end, and the ridges are a bit more pronounced. So it just really, it's just one of those things that as we go, we feel it out. It really depends on the piece. We haven't had too many pieces or designs that we've really retired, but that is definitely among them, one of them.
When you're looking at plugs, I mean, personally, I look at plugs and I think that neck always makes me just a little bit nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a concern?
Not for us, actually. We usually don't worry about, we're more worried about the base diameter than we are about the neck strength, because the neck diameter for us are usually at minimum 0.6 inches. So it's not big, but it gets bigger the larger the piece gets. Definitely depending on also what the customer wants, if they want something more customized. But this was another part of that Dangerous Lily blog that she had talked about, where someone had made a piece that had a piece of glass that had an acute angle forming and welded as the handle. And all of our pieces are a solid piece of glass. There's no, with the exception of some things, like let's say this one, the handle has been welded on, but the rest of the piece from top to bottom is all its own piece of glass.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to make something, now this is definitely not a body safe butt plug. I'm just gonna
Okay.
say that right now.
Yeah.
This is an April Fool's joke, but you can even see where the base is. It's just one piece of glass. This all
Okay.
comes from the same material. The issue with the one that she had highlighted was that the person, they had welded it and it caused this acute angle when, if the stress conditions are right, and it's already bad enough with tempered glass, but you consider that and the conditions of an acute angle in glass already making something more inherently weak, the wrong tap can cause that to break.
Mm.
But when it comes to this, unless I were to sit there and like take, maybe a hammer and just bust at it for, like, I could sit there and probably throw this across my room all day, and it would, my landlord would be mad at me as to why the hell are the dents everywhere. I was trying to prove a point. Okay, this butt plug's stronger than your walls. Get better walls.
Okay. So as long as a plug has or is made from a single piece, there shouldn't be any concerns.
As long as it's properly made, it
Right.
shouldn't have any real concerns.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's time for Fiona to make her appearance. She's decided. Jeez. Why don't we follow up on that question from My Bedroom Door? Are there any taboos when it comes to asking for certain designs, like asking for a replica of something that another maker that is not accessible makes? So I guess that's a question about replicas.
My mic is having a little bit of issues. Is it still good to go?
Go
Or
ahead.
is it
Yeah.
changing?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So when it comes to that, we've had a couple of moments where we've had actually someone approach us with a design from another maker where it's another silicone maker or something like that. And we get a little bit squeamish about that because it's something that another maker has put their design into and everything else. If we look to it toward it for a reference, we can do it, but we're not, especially when it comes to glass, we usually don't look at making exact replicas because it's just one of those things in the art world where or of the glass art world especially, where replicating something like tit for tat kind of starts stepping into a really weird gray area in that community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I like that. It's one thing to take inspiration, and totally another to replicate. I glass is a little bit different because you can't actually just like take a mold of something. Silicone, we can actually take a mold of something that somebody has made and just completely reproduce it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of loss of definition, but very, very little. It's going to be 90, 95, 99% accurate.
So I got a silly question for you that came to mind from me relating to molds and toys.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten this question probably too many times for me to be comfortable with, but we've been asked several times on our end, can I send you a mold of my equipment and can you make a glass piece off of that? The short answer and the long answer, no, we can't. Right. We definitely, like our glass especially, we cannot, because borosilicate glass is too stiff. And no, we're not about to sit there and work with a plaster mold and make that, because the plaster will burn away. And yeah, okay, it looks somewhat like it. There's like the tip and the rest of it just burned away. Sorry, bud.
Yeah.
But has that been a question you've come across a few times?
Yeah. I've had more than a few people ask me to, because you can take alginate, which is a very inexpensive and very easy to use material to make molds. It's what they use for life casting. So if you've ever seen them, like if you've ever watched those special effects shows where they make a very quick mold of somebody's face or their hand or something, it's alginate, and it's very easy to work with. I've had people offer to make a mold of their various body parts and send it to me to have silicone cast. And I've refused every time. Number one, I don't know where that mold has been. And
well, you know one place where it's been.
Exactly. I don't even take returns. If there's a problem with a toy that I have sent out, I ask for pictures. And if it's something that I can see there's a flaw in it, I don't even ask for the return. I'm like, you're right. Absolutely. There's a problem with it. I will send you a replacement. I don't even want it back, because once it's been out of my studio, I don't want it back, because I don't know
any form of liability at that point. Because
exactly. I want to know what has been in my studio, and I want to know the history of it. So nothing ever comes back in. And so,
I think that's one of the advantages we do have, because we can sit there and say to someone, we've had a couple of times where, like I said, we've had something slip past our eye on the inspection phase, and someone will say, hey, we've got this little mark here, which is, we've got grippers made of a titanium alloy that grab onto the glass at the finishing stages. And sometimes they leave marks, and titanium layer, we're usually able to get it. But so we've had that happen a couple of times, and we've had a couple of pieces where there's been a scratch or a weird wrinkle in the glass because of some of the last steps that we need to fix. But we're able to take those back and repair them because nothing is, even if they were to throw it into a bathtub or something like that, and the bathtub had, I don't know, tomato soup or whatever, and send it back just for shits and giggles or something like that. I'm just trying to think of something a little bit more kosher than saying they used the toy, but
Yeah.
we also take steps and clean it properly, wash our hands and everything just in case. But most cases they just open it, they see what's wrong with it, and they show us, and we're able to repair it once we get it back. We pay for the repairs, for the cost of shipping on the repair too, if we have
Mhm.
that, because that's something that slipped past us. But we're able to
Yeah.
do that because anything that we get back, we're able to say, yeah, I don't think anything's living in the kiln past
Yeah.
500 degrees, let alone 1,000 degrees just burns anything on it.
Yeah.
So we've been able to at least say we can take it as return and repair it. But if it's been, especially if we do follow with the question, has it been used, for
Mhm.
both our safety's sake and just the sake of the process moving forward, because we will take and repair a return and return it if it hasn't been used. But if it's been used, that's where we draw the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when we initiate remake mode.
Yeah. It's just it's just safer for everybody. So,
Yeah.
um, um, here's an interesting question for you. What intrigues you about the silicone market, about the silicone world?
Honestly, a lot. I love seeing the amount of detail that goes into developing the designs, developing the color. I mean, for me, the color is always something that's been fascinating to me. The sparkles, the UV reactivity, the iridescence that sometimes can be made of those toys, and just the amount of work, detail, and effort that goes into the, like, either live sculpting or 3D sculpting, and then 3D printing, modeling, all the processes of it that I've seen in action just really intrigued me, because it's unlike anything else I've seen when it comes to toys. I've seen videos of toys being made in the past where it was a big factory of people just making one toy after the other and then shipping them down the line. But I'm really happy to see the indie market for fantasy toys especially getting as fun, big, and creative as it is, because
Yeah.
it's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I'm really happy that there are so many makers out there who are being so creative.
Mhm.
Um, what are your favorite things to make from glass?
Hmm. Would that be toward, I guess I could say toward the shop and toward my own things, but excuse me. I'd say when it comes to my favorite things to make for the shop, it would be some of the wands, with, in particular, some of the colors that we use that are very, I wouldn't say delicate, but their nature definitely makes them a little bit more temperamental when it comes to working them, because you can wind up with a color of like these beautiful deep purples, reds, violets, greens, just all sorts of different colors. You can end up with metallic luster that holds below the surface, or you can end up with mud if you don't do it right, which that was my probably my first several attempts at working that color. So I started with that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the toys, that's definitely my favorite. When it comes to my own work, it's definitely the more intricate designs that I've been able to start working with some of the colors that I've got, where I'm able to actually, because I don't have to worry with my pieces explicitly about body safety. I just have to worry about someone not getting off a shelf or something like that, and that's on them. So I love doing designs like wrap and rakes. I love doing designs like dot stack patterns. I love working with uranium glass. It's fun. It's just, once I'm able to sit there and take off that body safety layer and work on my own art,
Mhm.
it's where I have a lot of my most fun with it. Not that making the toys isn't fun. It's just
Right.
I'm able to do a little more
Yeah.
on that, or in some cases with the ball handles, like I'm able to do implosion work. That's probably my next favorite thing, is actually taking glass and just making designs within this little confined space of a marble that still blows my mind as to how it works to this day.
Yeah. And when you take that body safe aspect off of it, it gives you that freedom to kind of explore
Mhm.
and yes, you can be creative and all those things, but then as you've explored and been creative, you can start to take those same skills and bring
Yeah.
them back into the body safe aspects. So yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. There are a lot of things that I do that I draw from totally unrelated, and yeah, I draw from all kinds of areas.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Um,
even what we do, we draw from inspiration from everywhere that we can.
mhm.
Chemistry is a big thing, and just working different elements together. It's I don't know. Glass is definitely one of those weird, wonky art forms where anything goes.
Yeah. All right. Again, I'm going to let everybody know if you have any questions, drop them in the chat so we can get them to Kevin. And I'm going to do last call on questions. So if you have them, get them in. Let's see. I've got a
I
few more here. Let's see. There was one. You mentioned the marijuana market. Were you and Anna making pipes before that?
I wasn't. I was joining in when her toy business was in full swing.
Okay.
Um, my first piece, I still have it at the shop. It's not even an art piece. It's my first day of training piece, and I'm gonna keep it a tradition that every time I'm training on a concept and I get the one take on it, I'm keeping that just because I want to track my progress. My first piece was two glass chunks of glass together, but
Yeah.
the pipe stuff, we do work on it. I'm not versed in vessel work right now, and that's where I'm practicing and back at square one, which is quite humbling. Quite humbling because 3 years up to this point, I've been getting better and better and better at this. And apparently, it's kind of taboo for someone to start off with big chunks of solid glass and working them and doing what I do. So the hollow stuff is harder for me to learn, but I'm slowly getting the hang of that. But we do have kind of a sideline bit because one of the things that Anna has been known for, and one of the things that kind of got viral on us this year was so we make fantasy toys. We make werewolf knotted toys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that ended up kicking off to where she made a vessel version of it. I don't know which came first, the vessel or the vessel or the egg. Bad joke there. I don't know which came first, the vessel or the vessel or the solid, but she at one point she decided to make the vessel version of one, stick it on a bong, and bada bing bada boom, knotted werewolf penis bong was born, essentially.
Hey, do you mind if I pull up your Twitter and show
Yeah.
off some stuff? I'm gonna.
Yeah, please, please, please.
Yeah, give me just a second. I want to make sure that I don't show off anything that I'm not supposed to. There we go. Okay. And again, I'm gonna try to make sure that I don't screw anything up.
I don't
So,
think there's anything on our Twitter that we can't show off. There's a couple of things we've retweeted
well,
charity wise, but
so these are some of the things that you've posted recently,
mhm.
and I mean, I'm a fan. I love
Thank
what you
you.
guys are doing with the glass.
Thank you so much.
And the werewolf, I'm gonna have to go back and find that one, because that one was just hilarious.
The funny
Uh,
thing is about that one was that it was earlier this year that I had gotten a message from someone saying, "Hey, this piece is memeing and floating around Reddit." And I just said, "Oh no." And eventually someone pre-posted on Twitter, and I think the picture they said, "Go ahead, take a puff." And it was just a picture of one of Anna's older pieces. Mind you, that was about, yeah, those
okay,
are pieces with synthetic opals in them. And I need to work on getting better videography and photography work for pieces like that, because it's so hard to see the dazzle and the beauty that some of these pieces have when it comes to that.
it's
I'm
freaking
I'm
gorgeous.
still, thank you. Yes. But yeah, I think that viral tweet got somewhere between 15,000 to 20,000 likes and bunch of retweets. Eventually someone finally said, "Hey, these are the people who make them." Yeah, that's one of our werewolf toys there. So
Yeah. And where was that? I'm still trying to find that one. I apologize if I'm kind of scrolling through here quickly, but
oh, you're fine. You're totally fine.
so many pets too.
Oh yeah, we're always retweeting good vibes.
That's an interesting one. The ring
Mm-hmm.
is interesting.
See, that's one of those aspects where I was talking about where the weld work, you can
Yeah.
see where that ring has been welded, and it's a clean weld.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any sharp or weird angles. It doesn't have any bubbles trapped, and the piece itself is not going to have any risk unless you sit there and literally intentional go at it with the intention of breaking that handle.
The Kegel eggs are interesting.
Yeah, those are fun because when I started working at Simply Elegant Glass, they were more so kind of, and they still kind of are at this point, a byproduct of what when we're making a piece or two or a few that don't exactly have the enough size to make another whole piece. So we'll make a Kegel egg as a finished product at the end.
Hmm. Okay. Now I think this was the pipe, wasn't it?
Yes, that is one of the pipes that we've made.
Okay. This is the werewolf pipe. Okay.
Yep. It's got the opals in there too, so it's really pretty.
Yeah. All right.
It's one of those niches that Lila Anna was able to find, and it's something that she's got a special knack for when it comes to making those kinds of forms,
Mm-hmm.
which still blows my mind that she's able to do it the way that she does. I have loads of respect for the amount of skill that she brings when it comes to that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all but I'm getting there.
Yeah. So George is saying, so your Kegel eggs are the equivalent of squishies, because that's kind
Kind
of
of,
what we
yeah.
do. Yeah. When we have any extra silicone left over, it always goes into an extra little mold, and we have little bits. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. What else? Deb Sativa had a question, and this is kind of a follow up from one of the ones I was asking earlier. Are there different types of quality glass for making toys? And the cheap toys, kind of imports, are they of a different quality or different materials?
It's hard to say because sometimes there's a lot of times, and I know I'm going back to this a lot on the Dangerous Lily blog, but it really was such a good resource. And I would honestly like, I might give that a retweet earlier or not earlier, later when I think about it, but it's such a good resource because he even mentions a lot of these makers who will sell these pieces will call their pieces Pyrex, which
Mm,
I could get different coefficients of expansion for Pyrex nowadays. And modern Pyrex is a brand name as more than it is a type of glass. It used to be the Corning Museum or the Corning glass version of borosilicate. Now they've got Pyrex borosilicate, which we could buy and use all day long. At the end of the day, it's still going to be 33 COE glass that's going to work pretty much the same as the glass that we've used for this. We use a different brand, but it's what's more readily available to us. So without having to get it shipped in on a big crate or anything like that, that's the best option to go for. But when it comes to what some of the makers use, they might not be using borosilicate glass. They might be using a softer glass, which there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but I would say that it definitely is going the wrong way with the marketing of it all. When we say we make our pieces from borosilicate glass, we can sit there and show the cases, we can show we can show the glass that we work with. It's all borosilicate. We do everything in according to an annealing schedule and everything else, use color that's compatible with it. Everything's borosilicate and everything has to be compatible. Otherwise, If we somehow wound up with the wrong type of glass color one day, it would be comical, the result of it. Because I think if I remember right, Lila had mentioned that essentially it'll just start swirling off and flying away from the piece that it even tries to go on. Because whereas the borosilicate has little room to grow and shrink, the others might have a lot more because it's
Hmm.
almost triple at times the coefficient of expansion. Which I don't know the mathematics behind that, but I imagine the higher coefficient of expansion definitely just never will work on the same level.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Hmm. I like this one. My bedroom door asking, are there any size limits when it comes to working with glass?
Yes. Yes
Okay.
and no. So we've had some larger pieces and we have a larger piece in the works, and I won't mention too many details of it because it's for a private client. But the long story short of it is that piece require or the larger the pieces, the more delicate the care we have to put into it on each step. And the more specialized our process gets with it because it's not as easy as just warming up a chunk of glass on the torch anymore. It's much more beyond that, and making sure that the whole piece is properly saturated in heat and everything else. Otherwise, you end up with a chunk of glass this big just breaking apart.
Hmm.
The biggest that I've had my hand in at this point that we've finished was it was an April Fool's joke a while ago, and I have a little bit of a story behind this one because
Okay.
Anna will try and mess with me once in a while and say say little fibs, try and say things that are just totally not true, and I'll know what's happening before she even finishes it because she'll be turned around, she won't be looking at me, she can't hold a straight face. Do you know the life of Brian Monty Python?
I I I know a little bit about it.
You know the scene where they're being antagonized by the guards and the ruler of the Roman Empire is he's got this awkward voice and he's trying to talk and be serious.
Okay.
And I just looked at her and I just said, because because that's how she reacted the same way the guards did in trying to keep a straight face. She can't. So that just became a running joke for a while until we eventually decided to make biggest dickus for April Fools. And it was huge. It was probably 2 pounds of glass. And it doesn't sound heavy until you're holding a chunk of glass doing this for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time just to finish it.
Yeah.
I make sure to get my stretches in every moment that I can at the shop because otherwise it hurts.
God. Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I have thoughts because I'm like, I'm the when we're working with silicone, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't. It's not necessarily about the weight, because we don't necessarily have to deal with the weight as much. It's about the viscosity and the
Mm-hmm.
mixing, and as the viscosity increases, you're having to really mix it, and it's it's work and cramping in the hands and arms and yeah,
Yeah.
it's a workout.
Oh yeah.
Um, let's see.
And one
Ben
more
had a,
thing to mention about that, the bigger the pieces we have, the more margin for error becomes. So
mm,
we can make pieces relatively large, but not only do we have to do account for that, but it also means it stays in the kiln for longer to anneal.
mhm.
So the annealing cycle goes depending on the thickness of the glass. The thicker the glass, the longer you have to wait for it to come out.
Glass is an insulator, just like silicone
Mhm.
is, and so it takes longer for the heat to transfer from one place to another. So,
Yep.
let's see. Ben has a question. Have you ever considered making a mold of one of your glass pieces just for fun? And I'm kind of curious. My thought goes to making a mold of one of the glass pieces and casting it in silicone.
We've thought about it, but we really haven't. experimented around with that exactly.
Hmm.
Because unless I think we've had one person reach out to us about it, but we really don't have any uses for making molds at our shop right now. So it's been something that we've thought about it. It's kind of come and gone in passing, but there's no way we're going to be able to use a mold for anything that we do anytime soon. So
Okay.
that's just pretty much where we're at with that.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see. Were there any others? Did you have any questions for me?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to remind everybody that we do have a Patreon, and you can support us on Patreon because you can do that on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Amavidi. And again, you cannot find us through the Patreon app. It's very strange because we're 18 plus. You can't find us. You can't find us by searching. You have to go to the website. So yeah, I found that out this week also. But yeah, we're doing special. It ends tomorrow. Yeah, if you come in at the squishy level or higher, we will send you a pack of squishies. So yeah,
Did you get yourself some squishies?
Yeah, did you come up with a question?
What's the wildest thing you would say that you've had the chance of making out of silicone while you've been doing this?
What people have asked me to do?
Or just what the wildest thing you've had the chance to do?
Well, I've had. There are two things. I'll just mention two things. One was,
Okay.
I have a friend of a friend, who has an Instagram, and all she posts are pictures of her feet.
Okay.
And she has a lot of fans, we'll put it that way, who like her feet.
Are they very selective fans?
They are rabid fans of her feet. And we've talked about maybe providing the opportunity for people to be able to purchase copies of her feet. So that's one of them. The other one was somebody who was looking for a depth play toy, and they were looking for something around 6 feet long.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen pictures of stuff like that on Etsy, and every time I look at it, I'm thinking, I'd rather use that as a lasso than a toy.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
And I actually came up with an idea how to do it. But yeah, we never ended up going down that road. But those are the two that kind of stand out.
No silicone lasso.
Right. Yeah.
See, we can't do that with glass. I mean, look at how effective this stuff is at bending.
Yeah.
I'm better off using this as a magic wand.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, what's on your studio playlist?
My studio playlist?
Yeah. What do you listen to in the studio?
A lot. We'll mix it up. Sometimes we'll be listening to jazz. Sometimes we'll be listening to funk. Sometimes we'll be listening to just random EDM. Other times, it just really depends on the mood. I mean, sometimes we've sat there and even played Animal Crossing music because it's just something nice to vibe to.
Okay. Well, what artists do you draw from? What artists inspire you?
Inspire me? A lot of them, honestly. There's a lot of artists, but if I were to sit there and look at glass artists, there's two names that come to mind in particular, and or three, I would say. One of them is an artist named Glass, who makes a lot of pieces themed around dragons and does a lot of collaborations on these pieces with the other glass artists. I'm hoping someday if there's an opportunity for me to get good enough, I could collaborate with them because I really love their work, but I'm not at that level yet. The next artist I would say would be Sue Ellen Fowler, because she's actually the person who pioneered the color behind my pendant here, which really, it's something that's hard to even show off. If I were to put it close to the camera, I'm not even going to try because it's just that small, but it's a color family called amber purples, and it's probably the most magical color I've ever. It's what really got me to take the full dive into glass blowing, because it goes from an amber, like a honey amber tone, to crystal clear, to purples, blues, reds, all in the blink of an eye if you work it right. And then last one would probably be kabuki glass, because that marble, the piece that I showed you earlier that had the flowery design inside,
Mhm.
this guy's able to sit there and make designs on the insides of marbles through the forces of
Mm.
a technique called implosion that look like dragons or samurais, the most detailed glass flowers that I've seen within the borosilicate medium. And it's just always so mind-boggling when it comes to seeing that work in motion.
Mm. Sounds incredible. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Ben wants to know, this is his last question, by the way. Well, his last question, not mine. What's your favorite Animal Crossing game for music?
I'd say City Folk. I'd say City Folk.
Okay. Tell me about your most epic fail.
My most epic fail?
Yeah.
Hang on. Please hold.
Okay. Well, while you are doing that, I will let everybody know that next week we have Xenocat artifacts booked. So next week we will have Erie from Xenocat Artifacts on, and that will be, with any luck, will be at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. Xenocat Artifacts, Erie, will be joining us. So yeah.
Ooh, I'll have to tune in for that one.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one.
So my most epic fail to date.
Okay.
I have to put the asterisk there. Was working on my push for Denver. The last day was really tiring, and I had gotten close to finishing. One of my last pieces was this egg in hand. It's a little snow leopard egg, actually, and it's hard to see the details, but there's the rosettes on there, and there's a layer of clear gray glass over a sparkling center to them. But this piece was on the punty attached here. I've been getting better with something called cold welding, which is where you, or tack welding, where you warm up a piece of glass and you essentially just dab it on so that you don't mess up your design. You don't have to clean it off too much. You can just essentially tap it and it just pops right off. But unfortunately, what had happened is that same property worked against me, as it had went against my hand and just skimmed around onto my arm and bounced onto the floor.
Oh.
Now, mind you, my first thought, just to let you know how serious the situation was. My first thought was, is the glass piece all right? That was my first thought. I didn't want to check my arm. I checked the ground for the glass egg, and it was still intact after falling on concrete. I'm still blown away that this piece survived. But I went to the convention with an egg-shaped burn mark on my arm that I brandished the whole entire weekend without much choice. So to date, that's my most epic fail.
Did I see a scar?
Not a scar. There is
Okay.
there is a little bit of a burn mark left over here, but because whenever I say I burned myself, people will freak out and go, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Oh yeah, the burns are. They're actually not that bad. They're more superficial than anything at times. The burns that I get are, unless it's a really serious burn, they're fine to work with again within 15 minutes, because the glass is so hot it actually evaporates that surface layer of water and just causes a little bit of damage to the skin. Cooking burns are still the worst. Okay. Still the worst, hands down.
Gotcha. Well, do you have anything coming up that you want to let everybody know about?
So we've got a couple of things coming up. You didn't hear it from me, but we do have a little bit of a Black Friday thing planned. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint to the people who might want to pass on that word.
Okay.
Other than that, we are planning on doing some holiday themed pieces soon. We're going to be doing, in preparation for the Christmas season, especially. We're going to be doing snowman butt plugs. We're going to be doing some Christmas tree stuff, candy canes, of course. And with Thanksgiving coming around the corner and a particular game in mind, have you ever heard of Spelunky by chance?
No.
So, long story short, most nightmarish game I've ever played because it's a roguelike and the creator is on a whole other level of sadism. I swear he loves to make people suffer.
Okay.
It is sadism. Sadism is that end, right? It's not masochism. It's right. I'm just making sure.
Yes. Sadism is causing pain.
Okay. Well, he causes a lot of people a lot of pain every day. And on the second game, there's a turkey that when I was playing around with a friend of mine, they said, or we noticed that the attack made the turkey's head look like a dildo. And the colors are simple enough, the shapes are simple enough to where I talked to my boss and we're thinking about the idea of just going full out on a turkey themed piece like that, just for the giggles of it. But if the developer of the game messages us, I don't know how they're going to respond. So we'll see if that happens, how that happens. But otherwise, Christmas stuff is definitely going to be the one that goes all the way. We're gonna be going really intensely on that one.
Good. All right. Well, I'm about ready to wrap it up. Unless there's anything else that you've got that you want to make sure everybody hears about.
Nope. I think I've got everything. I pretty much showed off the flops as we went. So
okay. Good. Well then, hang out for a minute and we will wrap up. Say goodnight, Wave, and I will do the quick wrap up.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Thanks, Kevin. Okay. Do I have a mic? I think I have a mic here. Okay. I think that's working. Well, with that, we're back. It's kind of working. This is, well, Kevin, I totally appreciate you being so patient and being such a great sport and being so wonderful. That was Kevin from Simply Elegant Glass. Wonderful, beautiful work. And you should totally check out their stuff. George has been dropping links into the chat, and we'll make sure that there are links in the video description. And we'll do this again next week. Xenocat Artifacts will be joining us next week, Sunday, 7 o'clock. Hopefully this will work out correctly. And yeah. With that, I'm out. Bye.